It's the Full Force News Burst Extra, brought to you by GeneralsJoesReborn.com, with me, Christopher McLeod AKA Diagnostic 80. Not a great deal of name-only reveals emerged over the last few months, but we do have a couple to look at, so let's talk Classified Airborne. Not many characters in the Joe universe can claim that their codename has been used by different people. A few spring to mind, like Mercer, who I always played off like he changed his name by deed poll in order to prevent Cobra finding out that he defected. And the obvious one, of course, Airborne. Yes, the Joe's helicopter assault trooper started life as Franklin E. Talltree, an indigenous American of the Navajo tribe in the 1983 lineup of figures. I'm sure most people think of Spirit when you mention indigenous Americans in G.I. Joe, but Airborne was the first. However, when 1990 rolled around, the Sky Patrol were introduced and all the good Air Force related codenames were taken, so they decided to reuse Airbornes for a completely different blonde-haired, blue-eyed Robert M6 character from Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. They separated them even more by changing the specialties. Version 1 had been an airborne infantryman and a helicopter gunship gunner, and he'd even appeared on the box art for the Dragonfly, which is why everyone was expecting to see him in one of the recent Dragonfly HasLabs tiers. Version 2 was switched to being the Sky Patrol parachute assembler and a battlefield medic, which is one of those awesome little hidden details I forget when putting together a team of G.I. Joe medical professionals. His figure history gets even more complicated, but we will come to that in a second. Coming back to version 1, Airborne was also sold the following year in 1984 and was discontinued in the US in 1985. In 1986 and 1987, Hasbro Direct offered Airborne as part of the original Adventure Team mail-in set. He came packaged in a plastic bag and came with 9 other figures in a carrying case. That first figure also has a slight variation on the left bicep tampo, with either thick or thin rank chevrons. The character appeared in some Sunbow episodes, including getting a huge spotlight in the episode Operation Mind Menace, where Cobra kidnaps people with paranormal powers for a battalion of special recruits, hoping to use their incredible gifts against the Joes. But when Airborne's brother, who happens to be telekinetic, goes missing, the Joes are tipped off to Cobra's plan. We got this version of the figure in the UK on a Palatoy card in 1985, and in keeping with the changes made to the majority of the characters' backgrounds, Airborne was born in Naples, Italy. They didn't give him a file name, however, but Franklin E. Talltree probably wouldn't have been it. In the late 1980s, Oricon released Airborne in Mexico as Volador, which translates into flying. In Argentina, he was released as Condor in numerous ways. Plastorama had him carded for their Comandos Heroicos line, and then sometime in the 1990s, another Argentinian toy company got its hands on leftover Plastorama toy stock and repackaged and resold them in Cops branded boxes, as well as packing him in with a random trench playset around the same time. In Brazil, he was also Condor and was released in their Comandos MSAO line in 1987. The figure also got a dope Python Patrol repaint as Gatillo in 1989. Despite switching the codename to Robert M6 for the Sky Patrol in 1990, Franklin E. Talltree was not forgotten, and in 2003, Sergeant Airborne was released in a G.I. Joe vs Cobra Spy Troops 2-pack with the Televiper version 3. That got a repaint the following year and came with the Sky Sweeper Jet for Valor vs Venom. In 2008, he received a 25th anniversary modern 4-inch version, which even got a repaint in 2011 as Trigger, an homage to that Python Patrol repaint Gatillo from 1989. In what could only happen to poor Airborne, he was given a different codename in 2009 for the Rise of Cobra's Sky Sweeper Jet. Air Raid was the new codename, and oddly didn't even really try to replicate the previous character likeness, and did appear to be a white male instead of the indigenous American we had come to expect with the character. Even more confusing was the fact that Air Raid version 2, used for the Sky Patrol in the 2016 G.I. Joe Collectors Club convention attendee freebie, changed the file name once again to Benjamin R. Thomas. This must be a record at this stage. Multiple codenames, multiple file names, and all interchangeable. It's like a hero masher, but for names. Robert M6 also made an appearance in the box set for that convention, just to make sure I'm covering all of them. The last one to mention is the 2013 Retaliation Tactical Ninja Team 3-pack, which featured Sergeant Airborne, Agent Mouse, and Snake Eyes version 65. Now, this release didn't have a file name anywhere, so we can only assume he was one of the many names we have for the the character around the same time. The fact that he wears a balaclava means we can't be exactly sure as to which file name he could have been. What a convoluted figure history. I would say for a character with as few actual figures as Airborne, I doubt there are many with more changes to the actual file names and code names as him. There are plenty of examples of figures with multiple file names when you take foreign versions into consideration, mainly thanks to the UK on that, but for a character to have multiple changes in this way, all in the same country, is quite amazing. I imagine a lot of the issues were down to trademarks and so on, but it has always interested me to see the lineage of Airborne's monikers. In any case, let's finally talk Classified. I think it's fairly obvious that we are getting the Franklin E. Talltree version 1 style vintage design here. It would be a switch up of monumental proportions if for some unknown reason they dropped the Sky Patrol Robert M6 figure on our heads as a lead into Sky Patrol, so let's just assume that we all know that it won't be the latter. With that said, I can almost imagine what he will look like thanks to the design shift to a more classic style. I expect the Joe Pro to make an appearance on the secondary, and with all the recent removable helmets, I fully imagine that will be there as well. Loadout will most likely be simple too. We know that he is mainline and most probably a standard retail release, so a knife, pistol, rifle, backpack and helmet are what's expected. I can't think of many other things he could come with, but you never know considering the fact I never thought I'd see a rat with tripwire. I do feel that this will be more effective as a release if they keep it simple, and he will look so good with the Dragonfly per the original box art that I really don't think any extras would be necessary. On the flip side to that though, there is always the possibility that they could ramp up the stakes on this figure and basically do another tripwire style deluxe. Considering he does have a precedent with a few of the modern figures to include huge bulky equipment, I could see them sneaking in another removable secondary and, hear me out here, possibly even a working parachute, which I fully expected to see revealed during the HasLab campaign based on what they did with the O-Ring Sky Striker. There were so many parallels over both campaigns that it felt like it was coming, so maybe they go all out on that particular feature with Airborne. The figures are certainly durable enough to cope with being thrown out of a 10-story window attached to a pair of underpants on strings. I imagine they might choose a different material, but you get what I mean. As far as repaints go, there is one major possibility that does seem very doable. Python Patrol Gatillo. The deco on that figure would be extremely cool, and given a different head sculpt would really go a long way to differentiate them completely. I could see that one happening as it is such a simple reuse for the design team, and even with the same head could be given a different hair colour to help further distance the two figures. You can also apply the same technique with the Tiger Force Sabretooth / Wreckage using the new Firefly figure. I would be excited to see these homages in the line even if nobody else would. Anyway, what do you guys think? Are you excited for Airborne in the Classified series? Are you expecting straight vintage or some extra deluxe stuff? Do you want to see working parachutes? Will he have a different file name and code name just for lols again? Let me know in the comments below. Okay team, lots more content to come, so keep it locked, stay fresh cheese bags, and as always, full force. That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst Extra. Thank you for watching, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. See you next time, and as always, full force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce podcast, or click on the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force!